Clark Gable, a titan of the silver screen. But behind the fame and charm lies a lesser-known story. He had two children. One was Judy Lewis, hidden from the world, raised in secrecy, her life marked by a relentless search for truth and identity. The other, John Clark Gable, entered the world already carrying a legend's name, yet he would grow up in the shadow of a father he never met. Their lives unfolded not just in the glow of Hollywood lights, but in the shadows cast by fame, secrecy, and legacy. Judy Lewis, originally named Judith Young, entered the world under a shroud of secrecy, her very existence the result of one of Hollywood's most tightly guarded scandals. She was the daughter of two of the era's most celebrated stars, the graceful Loretta Young and the legendary Clark Gable. But their romance, born on the set of the 1935 adventure film Call of the Wild, was anything but glamorous behind the scenes. In the unforgiving moral climate of 1930s Hollywood, such a liaison wasn't simply frowned upon, it was career-ending. Studios wielded enormous power over their actors, enforcing strict morality clauses that left no room for personal scandal. At the time, Gable was married to Maria Langham. Loretta, young and unmarried, found herself pregnant with no socially acceptable path forward. Her Catholic faith condemned out-of-wedlock births, and the industry she was rising in offered no forgiveness for such transgressions. Reports suggest Clark Gable distanced himself, providing little support as Loretta faced the crisis alone. Forced to choose between her public image, her religious beliefs, and her unborn child, Loretta crafted a careful lie. She finished her film commitments while disguising her pregnancy with tightly fitted costumes, then quietly left for Europe. When she returned, it was only briefly, just long enough to give birth in utter secrecy. Judith Young was born on November 6, 1935 in Venice, California, under a veil of absolute secrecy. The silence was so crucial that Loretta Young, terrified of anyone discovering the truth, allegedly covered her infant's mouth to muffle her cries. For the first 19 months of her life, Judy was hidden away, moved between orphanages and private residences, her existence known only to a trusted few. Then, in a calculated move to preserve her image, Loretta announced that she had adopted the child. That public lie became the foundation of Judy's childhood. When Judy was 4, Loretta married producer Tom Lewis, and Judy took his last name, though he never legally adopted her. To outsiders, they appeared to be a family, but Judy always sensed something was off. She felt distant, like a guest in her own home, surrounded by affection that didn't quite fit. The secret she carried wasn't only emotional, it was etched into her very features. Judy bore a haunting resemblance to Clark Gable, especially in her ears. In a desperate bid to suppress the truth, Loretta arranged for Judy, at just 7 years old, to undergo otoplasty surgery to pin them back. It was a cosmetic change meant to erase a biological clue, but it spoke volumes. Judy's body was being reshaped to fit a lie. As she grew, so did the cracks in the facade. Judy herself was still unaware, but the whispers had long circulated through Hollywood's elite. Everyone seemed to know, except her. The only time she met Clark Gable, she was 15. He visited Loretta's home briefly, shared a gentle conversation with Judy, and kissed her forehead before leaving. It was a quiet moment, warm but strange, like a secret trying to speak through a silence that had gone on too long. When Clark Gable left that day, Judy had no idea she had just spoken with her biological father. To make matters more confusing, Loretta later denied the meeting had ever taken place, further burying the truth under layers of silence and secrecy. The real unraveling began when Judy was 23. Her fiancé, Joe Tinney, casually mentioned what much of Hollywood already knew, that Clark Gable was her father. For Judy, it was like being struck by lightning. Her identity, her past, everything she believed about herself was suddenly thrown into question. Still, it would take 8 more years before she confronted her mother. By then, Gable had been dead for over a decade. At 31, Judy finally demanded answers. Loretta's response was both devastating and revealing. Overcome with emotion, she became physically ill and eventually uttered the chilling words, "Yes, you are my sin." In that moment, Judy received the confirmation she had always felt, but had never been allowed to know. Clark Gable never acknowledged her, publicly or privately. He declined invitations to milestone events in her life, including her graduation and wedding. Even in death, the denial continued. His 1960 will explicitly stated that he had no living children. That omission wasn't just legal, it was personal. For Judy, it carved a deep wound. Her father's silence and her mother's decades-long deception left her wrestling with a painful, lifelong sense of abandonment. In 1994, Judy Lewis broke decades of silence with the release of her autobiography, Uncommon Knowledge. It wasn't just a memoir. It was a reclamation of identity, a courageous attempt to take control of her own narrative after a lifetime shaped by secrecy and denial. In its pages, Judy laid bare the truth of her hidden origins, the clandestine affair between Clark Gable and Loretta Young, and the emotional toll of growing up as a secret. She didn't shy away from the pain. She wrote openly about the wounds left by years of abandonment and about the struggles she faced in her own relationships as she searched for a sense of belonging. Judy also confronted the contradictions of her mother. Loretta Young, hailed for her grace and devout Catholic image, was revealed through Judy's eyes as a woman shaped by fear, control, and an obsession with maintaining appearances. The portrait was complex, not cruel, but honest. Loretta's response was severe. She was outraged by the book's publication, refused to speak to Judy for 3 years, and even threatened legal action. In public, she clung to the old narrative, continuing to deny that Judy was biologically hers. But the truth had already resonated. Uncommon Knowledge became a bestseller, praised for its vulnerability and its rare glimpse into the carefully curated illusions of old Hollywood. Only after Loretta's death in 2000 did the full truth finally emerge. Her own posthumously published autobiography acknowledged it. Clark Gable was indeed Judy Lewis's father. Judy Lewis built a life far beyond the shadow of her famous lineage. She forged a multifaceted career in the entertainment industry, appearing on Broadway and becoming a familiar presence on daytime television. From 1964 to 1971, she starred in The Secret Storm, later appearing in General Hospital. But her talents weren't confined to acting. Judy also stepped behind the scenes, writing and producing for television. Her work on Search for Tomorrow earned her a Writers Guild Award in the 1980s, a testament to her creative strength. Driven by a desire to help others, Judy shifted her focus to psychology. She earned advanced degrees and became a licensed marriage and family therapist, specializing in children's rights and teen counseling. Her own experiences as a child raised in secrecy and emotional distance seemed to fuel a deep well of empathy. Her advocacy made a lasting impact, so much so that the American Counseling Association later honored her legacy by establishing the Dr. Judy Lewis Counselors for Social Justice Award. Her personal life, however, remained complex. Her relationship with Loretta Young was a lifelong emotional battleground, fraught with love, disappointment, and attempts at reconciliation. With Clark Gable, there was essentially no relationship at all. Judy married Joe Tinney, and together they had a daughter, Maria, who gave Judy the joy of 2 grandsons. The marriage eventually ended in divorce, and her partner later in life was Steve Rowland. As for her paternal half-brother, John Clark Gable, their connection was distant. Reports suggest he never acknowledged Judy as his sister, adding another layer of estrangement to a life already shaped by silence and separation. Years after Judy Lewis's death, a revelation emerged that cast her origins in a devastating new light. In 2015, Linda Lewis, the wife of Judy's half-brother Christopher, disclosed that Loretta Young had privately confided at the age of 85 that her encounter with Clark Gable had not been consensual. She had called it date rape. This posthumous admission altered the entire narrative. What had long been perceived as a scandalous affair was suddenly reframed as an act of violation, one Judy herself never knew about and never had the chance to emotionally reckon with. It added a tragic, heartbreaking layer to an already painful history. Judy Lewis passed away from cancer on November 25, 2011 at the age of 76. But she didn't just leave behind a story of secrecy, she left behind a legacy of strength, integrity, and compassion. In telling her truth and dedicating her later years to counseling and advocacy, Judy helped others heal the kinds of wounds she had carried all her life. And then there was John Clark Gable. Where Judy entered the world in silence and secrecy, John's arrival was the opposite. Loud, public, and mythic. Born on March 20, 1961, just 4 months after the death of his father, Clark Gable, John became a national sensation the moment he drew breath. His mother, Kay Williams, Gable's 5th wife, was still mourning her husband when John was born. Just 14 days later, his face appeared on the cover cover of Life magazine. America saw him as a living echo of the man they adored, a symbol of continuity, a second coming of the king. He grew up on the 22-acre Encino estate that once belonged to his father, a childhood marked by fame and isolation. From the beginning, Kay was fiercely protective. After a chilling kidnapping attempt when John was still an infant, she tightened her circle, determined to shield him from the darker sides of celebrity. She was also intent on allowing him to grow up with his own identity. He wasn't named Clark Gable Jr., despite public expectation. He was named John Clark Gable, in keeping with a wish reportedly expressed by his father. It was a small but symbolic gesture toward giving the boy a chance at individuality in the long shadow of a legend. John Clark Gable's upbringing was one of privilege and protection, shaped by both legacy and loss. Educated at several institutions, including a school in Switzerland, he cultivated interests that reflected the man he never met, his father. Among those passions was a love for speed and auto racing, something he later learned Clark Gable had shared. That discovery became a rare point of connection, a way for John to feel closer to the mythic figure whose shadow he lived in. Though his mother, Kay, initially tried to discourage him from the dangers of racing, John would ultimately follow that path, carving a space that felt uniquely his own. From his father's estate, John inherited $400,000, a modest fortune by Hollywood standards, but symbolic. More importantly, he was legally acknowledged as Clark Gable's only child in the will, a public affirmation of lineage Judy Lewis had never received. John's personal life has seen its share of turbulence and transitions. He has been married 3 times. His first marriage, to Tracy Yarrow, lasted from 1985 to 1990. Together, they had 2 children, a daughter, Loretta Gable, born in 1986, and a son, Clark James Gable, widely known as Clark Gable III, born in 1988. His second marriage, to Alexandria Remlin, spanned from 1999 to 2002. In 2020, John married Deborah Hartzell Gable, and the couple now jointly manages Clark Gable Enterprises, working to preserve the Gable name and its place in Hollywood history. But John's life has also been marked by heartbreak. His son, Clark Gable III, seemed poised to carry the family torch. He worked as a model, actor, and became the host of the reality TV series Cheaters. Yet behind the camera, he faced significant struggles, multiple arrests, and even a stabbing. In February 2019, tragedy struck. Clark Gable III died at just 30 years old from an accidental overdose involving fentanyl, oxycodone, and alprazolam. He left behind a young daughter, Loretta Gable, making John a grandfather under sorrowful circumstances. He also has a grandson, Ocean, through his daughter, Kay. Living with the pain of having outlived his only son, John now stands as the last direct male descendant of Clark Gable, a man forever tied to a legacy shaped by glamour, tragedy, and the heavy cost of fame. While bearing the Gable name open doors, John Clark Gable never fully embraced the Hollywood spotlight. He tried his hand at acting, most notably appearing in the 1990 Western Bad Jim, but his true calling lay far from movie sets. It was behind the wheel, on rugged tracks and dusty circuits, where he found his passion. In the world of motorsports, he carved out his own identity, becoming a 2-time champion in the Lucas Oil Off-Road Racing Series. These victories weren't handed to him. They were earned through grit, skill, and sheer determination, proving he was more than just his last name. Today, John's most meaningful role is one he plays off the racetrack. As president of Clark Gable Enterprises, a company he co-owns with his wife Deborah, he has taken on the mantle of steward for his father's legacy. Together, they work to protect Clark Gable's image, ensuring that the King of Hollywood remains immortalized for new generations. In doing so, John is actively writing the posthumous narrative of a father he never knew, turning memory into mission. But life, as the only acknowledged son of a Hollywood legend, has come with its share of turbulence. In 2013, John was arrested in Malibu for DUI and a hit-and-run incident. He denied being intoxicated, instead citing a possible medical episode linked to previous brain aneurysms, which he had undergone surgeries for in 2006 and again in 2009. That same year, tragedy struck when his live-in girlfriend Christiane Candice Lang died unexpectedly at their home. Though no foul play was suspected, the incident added to the series of personal hardships John has faced. Years earlier, in 2006, his daughter Kay publicly voiced concern concerns about his alleged struggles with addiction, casting a shadow over his carefully maintained public image. Despite these adversities, despite the emotional weight of carrying a storied name and the searing grief of outliving his own son, John Clark Gable continues to move forward. He lives not just in the legacy of a father he never met, but in the hard-won identity he's built through racing, resilience, and remembrance. John Clark Gable has proven to be remarkably resilient in the face of public scrutiny, personal tragedy, and the daunting weight of legacy. Today, he continues to navigate a delicate balance between his private life and the public responsibilities that come with being the sole surviving son of one of Hollywood's most iconic figures. He and his wife, Deborah, reside in California, where they remain focused on managing Clark Gable Enterprises. In recent years, John has embraced a quieter existence, stepping back from the spotlight to preserve and protect the enduring reputation of the Gable name. His public attention has shifted toward legacy building, highlighting the timeless appeal of Clark Gable while ensuring that the essence of the man behind the myth isn't lost to history. In doing so, John honors his father without being consumed by his image. His life, much like that of Judy Lewis, reveals the complex human stories behind Hollywood royalty. Theirs are tales of hidden pain, personal transformation, and the long reach of truth. Together, Judy and John offer a powerful lens into the hidden costs of fame, the silence that often cloaks family secrets, and the deeply human quest for identity. Each, in their own way, stepped out from the immense shadow of Clark Gable, not by denying it, but by forging lives defined not just by inheritance, but by strength, meaning, and hard-won selfhood. Their stories are not just about scandal or sorrow, they're about strength, truth, and the quiet power of perseverance. Judy Lewis and John Clark Gable were born into the same legacy, but each carved their own path through very different challenges. Judy, raised in secrecy, found her voice and reclaimed her identity with courage and grace. John, born into a spotlight he never asked for, learned to step into his own light, honoring his father's legacy while creating a life defined by passion, resilience, and purpose. What unites them is not just a last name, but a testament to the human spirit, the ability to grow beyond the circumstances we're given, to rise above silence, and to shape our own story. They remind us that while we can't choose where we come from, we can always choose who we become. If their journeys inspired you, let that inspiration ripple outward. Share this story, subscribe for more untold legacies, and leave a comment about a time you found strength in your own truth. Because in the end, the most powerful legacy we can leave behind isn't fame, it's authenticity and the courage to live it fully.